Dear Henry, tomorrow I need your assistance to guide a weary traveler toward the North Star. Like yourself, he is also named Henry. I will leave my instructions here at your cabin tomorrow morning, and they must be followed before the end of night. Most sincerely, A. Bronson Alcott.
As the sparrow had its trill, sitting on the hickory before my door, so had I my chuckle or suppressed warble which he might hear out of my nest. Interesting. In the fall, the loon came, as usual, to molt and bathe in the pond, making the woods ring with his wild laughter. When I went to get a pail of water early in the morning, I frequently saw this stately bird sailing out of my cove within a few rods. Huh. To read well, that is, to read true books in a true spirit, is a noble exercise, and one that will task the reader more than any exercise which the customs of the day esteem. It requires a training such as the athletes underwent, the steady intention almost of the whole life to this object. Books must be read as deliberately and reservedly as they were written. I never found the companion that was so companionable as solitude. A man thinking or working is always alone. Let him be where he will. Solitude is not measured by the miles of space that intervene between a man and his fellows.
Congratulations, you've solved the first riddle. Now let's see how far you can get in the game. Between Peak of Haywood and Water's Edge, in a patch of daisies and a bit of sedge, nearby, a perfect point for fish and fowl, and in the evening, a hooting owl. Love, Sophia.
One day, I observed two large ants, the one red, the other much larger, nearly half an inch long and black, fiercely contending with one another. Looking farther, I was surprised to find that the chips were covered with such combatants that it was not a duellum, but a bellum, a war between two races of ants. It was the only battle which I have ever witnessed, the only battlefield I ever trod while the battle was raging. Internecine war, the red republicans on the one hand and the black imperialists on the other. On every side they were engaged in deadly combat, yet without any noise that I could hear, and human soldiers never fought so resolutely. This further experience also I gained. I said to myself, I will not plant beans and corn with so much industry another summer, but such seeds, if the seed is not lost, as sincerity, truth, simplicity, faith, innocence, and the like, and see if they will not grow in this soil. Look out for woodchucks, if it is an exposed place, for they will nibble off the earliest tender leaves almost clean as they go. And again, when the young tendrils make their appearance, they have notice of it, and will shear them off with both buds and young pods, sitting erect like a squirrel.
You must work more diligently on your writing, Henry. Don't be distracted with careless idles. Take care to discriminate between what appears and what is. Let others seem. Trust yourself to being. Open your senses and let nature think through you. Only then will you attain true culture.
Dear Emerson, I think you might be interested in our friend Thoreau's thoughts on the subject of slavery in Massachusetts. He has much to say that makes good sense. I may encourage him to write these ideas down for publication in Mr. Garrison's Liberator. What do you think? Yours sincerely, A. Bronson Alcott.
Dear Mr. Emerson, thank you for your hospitality of late. I look forward to our next conversations, and with Mr. Thoreau as well. He is a singular character, is he not? A young man with much wild, original nature in him, sophisticated in a way of his own. A keen and delicate observer of nature, and nature, in return for his love, seems to adopt him as her special child, and shows him secrets which few others are allowed to witness. Yours, Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Ah, hello.
Good afternoon.
Oh, you found my Plato. Good for you, Henry. I wanted to look at that passage about men's blindness to truth and the allegory of the cave. I know you know the one I mean.
Yes, I've read it.
That's good. I'd hoped you would, and that it would give you inspiration. Your own experiment is much like that of the man who leaves the cave and goes into the light, don't you think? And the rest of us, living in our safe houses, are the men left in the dark. I hope you won't think less of us for not braving the woods full time. Speaking of the woods, I've been searching them in vain for my Bhagavad Gita. I was reading it out near the Fairyland Meadow and seem to have lost it. Have you seen it by any chance?
I haven't seen it, but I can look for it.
Wonderful. Let me mark the very spot. I think I left it on your map so that you can find it.
That shouldn't be difficult to find. I'll see you again soon.
Good work. Keep going. Standing tall at the rim of the sky, like my namesake's transparent eye, I have the clearest view of all we know, far from toil of the field and the hoe. S.
Fall is the time of painted leaves. Their rich glow now flashes around the world. Shall I go to heaven or a-fishing? If I should soon bring this meditation to an end, would another so sweet occasion be likely to offer? I was as near being resolved into the essence of things as ever I was in my life. Whatever my own practice may be, I have no doubt that it is a part of the destiny of the human race, in its gradual improvement, to leave off eating animals, as surely as the savage tribes have left off eating each other when they came in contact with the more civilized.
Ah, hello.
Good evening. I had more visitors while I lived in the woods than at any other period in my life. I mean that I had some. I had withdrawn so far within the great ocean of solitude, into which the rivers of society empty, that for the most part, so far as my needs were concerned, only the finest sediment was deposited around me. You can always see a face in the fire. The laborer, looking into it at evening, purifies his thoughts of the dross and earthiness which they have accumulated during the day. It is an interesting question how far men would retain their relative rank if they were divested of their clothes. Could you, in such a case, tell surely of any company of civilized men which belong to the most respected class?
There you are, Henry. Haven't you found my Bhagavad Gita yet?
I haven't found it yet, but I'll keep looking. Like many of my contemporaries, I had rarely for many years used animal food, or tea or coffee, etc., not so much because of any ill effects which I had traced to them, as because they were not agreeable to my imagination. It appeared more beautiful to live low and fare hard in many respects. It should not be by their architecture, but why not even by their power of abstract thought, that nations should seek to commemorate themselves? How much more admirable the Bhagavad Gita than all the ruins of the East. Walden is blue at one time and green at another, even from the same point of view. Lying between the earth and the heavens, it partakes of the color of both. The water is so transparent that the bottom can easily be discerned at the depth of 25 or 30 feet. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. What is called resignation is confirmed desperation. From the desperate city you go into the desperate country, and have to console yourself with the bravery of minks and muskrats.
Henry, there you are.
Hello.
Oh, you found my Bhagavad Gita. Good for you, Henry. I wanted to look at that passage about the banyan tree that has its boughs beneath and its roots above. I know you know the one I mean.
Yes, I've read it.
That's good. I had hoped you would, and that it would give you inspiration. I think you might be like the banyan tree, Henry, with its leaves all green and waving hymns which whisper truth. That is, if you keep to your plan and don't waste your days away huckleberrying. Doesn't the Bhagavad Gita say that he who knows the banyan tree knows Veds and all? I've been looking for my Rig Veda, by the way. I was reading it the other day down by the southern shore of the pond. Have you seen it there by any chance?
I haven't seen it, but I can look for it.
Wonderful. Let me mark the very spot. I think I left it on your map so that you can find it.
That shouldn't be difficult to find. I'll see you again soon.
Here's a cap to keep you warm, and another riddle to keep you thinking. At the very edge of the Walden wood, in grove of deeply green sweet fern, find me you should, before the leaves turn. Sophia.
To be a philosopher is not merely to have subtle thoughts, nor even to found a school, but so to love wisdom as to live according to its dictates, a life of simplicity, independence, magnanimity, and trust. It is to solve some of the problems of life, not only theoretically, but practically. A lake is the landscape's most beautiful and expressive feature. It is Earth's eye, looking into which the beholder measures the depth of his own nature.
Hello. You found my
Good
rig better.
afternoon.
Good for you, Henry. I wanted to look at that passage about the beginning of all things, the highest and the lowest places. I know you know the one I mean.
Yes, I've read it.
Well, that's good. I'd hoped you would, and that it would give you inspiration. Don't you ask as well, what was the wood? What was the tree from which heaven and earth were fashioned forth? Sometimes I think that you might find that very tree here in the woods of Walden. All of this research is for a new lecture I'm drafting, based on my early essay, Nature. I was rereading it the other day out by the cliff and must have left it there. Have you seen it by any chance?
I haven't seen it, but I can look for it.
Wonderful. Let me mark the very spot. I think I left it on your map so that you can find it.
That shouldn't be difficult to find. I'll see you again soon. On such a day, in September or October, Walden is a perfect forest mirror, set round with stones as precious to my eye as if fewer or rarer. Nothing so fair, so pure, and at the same time so large as a lake, perchance, lies on the surface of the earth, skywater. Interesting. In an hour or two without labor, but as a recreation I could, if I wished, catch as many fish as I should want for 2 days, or earn enough money to support me a week. One day, I came upon the moldering wreck of a boat, the sides gone, and hardly more than the impression of its flat bottom left amid the rushes. Yet its model was sharply defined, as if it were a large decayed pad with its veins. It was as impressive a wreck as one could imagine on the seashore, and had as good a moral.
November 1845. Henry, the seasons are turning now, and we all feel the coldness of time. Does the work progress? Do you think it will be done by spring? Have you prepared well for the winter to set in? Love, Sophia.
At night there was never a traveler passed by my house, or knocked at my door, more than if I were the first or last man. I believe that men are generally still a little afraid of the dark, though the witches are all hung, and Christianity and candles have been introduced.
Regrets, dear Henry. Since you were not able to help our friend Henry Williams, he made his way to your family home late last night, and was assisted instead by your sister Sophia and your mother. They ministered to him with cheerfulness and devotion, and he is on his way north as I write. It is clear to me that, as Mr. Garrison says, the destiny of the slaves is in the hands of American women. Your friend, A. Bronson Alcott.
Every man looks at his woodpile with a kind of affection. I love to have mine before my window, and the more chips, the better to remind me of my pleasing work. The hares were very familiar. They used to come round my door at dusk to nibble the potato parings which I had thrown out, and were so nearly the color of the ground that they could hardly be distinguished when still.
Good, Henry. Mr. Garrison has heard of your sentiments against slavery in our nation. I know that his recent lecture at our Lyceum roused you quite thoroughly. He asks if you won't write something for the Liberator on the topic. I suggest sending this manuscript on slavery in Massachusetts that you left with me recently. It will certainly move many hearts and minds. With thanks, Alcott.
Interesting.
June, 1839. Dear Sophia, I so enjoyed spending time with Henry and John on their recent visit. We went boating every day and took long walks in the woods. Henry knows so much about each of the plants and flowers, it is quite a marvel. And John is so jolly and fun. I hardly know which brother is a better companion, and I'm glad not to have to choose. Best, Ellen.
Dear Ellen, I think of our time together often and hope that we will meet again soon. Till then, I send another poem for you. Two sturdy oaks, which side by side withstand the winter's storm, and spite of wind and tide, grow up the meadow's pride, for both are strong. Above they barely touch, but undermined down to their deepest source, admiring, you shall find their roots are intertwined inseparably. Henry.
November 1840. Dear Sophia, I have never felt so badly in my life as the day I refused Henry's letter of proposal. But Father does not approve of his transcendental philosophies and instructed me to refuse in a short, explicit, and cold manner. It is all over now, and I hope that though I have dashed the hopes of both your brothers, we can still remain friends in the end. Ellen.
Good evening, Henry.
Good evening.
What can I do for you?
For my part, I could easily do without the post office. I think that there are very few important communications made through it. For a long time, I was a reporter to a journal, of no very wide circulation, whose editor has never yet seen fit to print the bulk of my contributions, and, as is too common for writers, I got only my labor for my pains.
Ah, there you are, Henry. I think your sister was just in and collected a letter from your old friend, Miss Sewell. We haven't seen her much recently.
The village appeared to me a great newsroom, and on one side, to support it, as once at Redding and Company's on State Street, they kept nuts and raisins, or salt and meal and other groceries. Shall we always study to obtain more of these things, and not sometimes to be content with less? I observed that the vitals of the village were the grocery, the barroom, the post office, and the bank, and, as a necessary part of the machinery, they kept a bell, a big gun, and a fire engine at convenient places, and the houses were so arranged so that every traveler had to run the gauntlet, and every man, woman, and child might get a lick at him.
Don't let Ellen's rejection of your offer come between you, Henry. It's a terrible blow. I know you and John both cared for her deeply, but think if she had accepted one and left the other to watch their happiness from the outside. No, to turn you both down was the kindest thing she could do. And you still have John and I and our beloved woods to console you.
We boast that we belong to the 19th century and are making the most rapid strides of any nation. But consider how little this village does for its own culture. It is time that we had uncommon schools, that we did not leave off our education when we begin to be men and women.
I hardly know what you do with your time, Henry. The children say you took them out huckleberrying all day rather than working on those edits I suggested for your article. Sometimes I think I would like to see your work published more than you would.
Dear Emerson, I thank you for your kind words on the dial and for sending the piece by Mr. Thoreau. I do not see the full merits of the work as you have described, yet having some knowledge of the man, there is no objection I could make to his lines which I would not make to himself. He is rare, of open eye, ready hand, and noble scope. He sets no limits to his life, but is somewhat a bare hill, which the warm gales of spring have not yet visited. A wider and deeper human experience will mold the man and melt his verse. I can have no better advice for a person so sincere. Margaret Fuller.
Dear Counselor, I write in assistance of a young friend of mine, Mr. Henry David Thoreau, who has taken time from his literary pursuits to invent a new, improved method for the production of pencils. I believe a patent application for this method would be successful, and the financial support from such a patent would be of great importance to this young man's family. Might you look at the drawings and specifications included and give us advice on how to make such an application? Sincerely, Ralph Waldo Emerson. Good evening.
Hello.
Dearest Henry, you are a model of self-reliance. I am overwhelmed with admiration, as is my daughter Louisa, who speaks of you often with youthful affection. I write to tell you that your article is in print in Mr. Garrison's Liberator. He tells me it makes him weep with fury. Surely this is payment enough for your troubles. Your friend, A. Bronson Alcott.
Something bitter and something sweet for you, and a new clue. Closer to home, in Violet and Rose, where the whistle of Fitchburg solemnly blows, I stand on a path where Indians tread, and once by our brother, so too were we led. All my love, Sophia.
You need only sit still long enough in some attractive spot in the woods that all its inhabitants may exhibit themselves to you by turns. Winter has arrived, and a regular snowstorm has commenced, fine flakes falling steadily and rapidly whitening all the landscape. In half an hour, the russet earth is painted white even to the horizon. I know of no other so silent and sudden a change.